Okay, so let's get started. So last week, we know that there was a lot of stuff that we all basically done, right? We know that we went through a lot of stuff last week, and this week we've got a lot more stuff we want to go through. This is part 3. So if you missed last week's, it's not going to be a big deal. You can go back and listen to it, and a lot of these pieces add up to one big piece. But at the same time, the stuff this week is independent of that. So if you missed last week's and you're listening to this week's and stuff, you can go back and catch it if you want. So guys, now the first thing we want to talk about today, which I feel like is a problem that a lot of agents have, and I feel like a lot of agents have like over and over again, is that they have fear, right? And they have just stuff that's going on in their life that they just can't seem to get past. And here's the thing: all of us have issues. We're all in one of 3 places. Even these sellers and stuff that you're calling, everybody is everybody's in one of 3 places. They either just went through something, they're in the middle of something, or they've got something going on that they don't even know about yet. And it's like that with everything. So guys, there's 2 things that are going to happen with every single call that you have. 2 things that are going to happen. And every agent that's prospecting, there's 2 things that are going to happen. Everyone thinking about prospecting, only one of these 2 things is guaranteed. Number 1, if you get on the phone and make calls, even if you're really bad, you're going to get 1 or 2 here and there, right? You're going to get 1 or 2. You're going to get some. You're going to get something every now and then. I used to have an old broker that used to say that even a blind hog finds an acorn every now and then. And I'm sure you guys have heard the old saying too that hey, even a clock that's stopped is still wrong twice a day, right? So if you get on the phone sooner or later and you make the calls and you talk to enough people, you are going to have somebody that says, hey, Jason, I want to list my house with you, right? Hey, Jenny, I want to list my house with you. Hey, Kyle, I want to list my house with you. Hey, Bella, I want to work with you, right? You're going to have somebody, even if you're bad, even if you miss up the scripts, even if you can't hardly get your name out, you're going to have somebody that will want to work with you. And that's that's it. That is the way it is. Number 2, though, this is guaranteed. If you never pick up the phone and call the expireds for sale owners and stuff, they're not going to call you, right? Just because you subscribe to RedX. I love RedX. I like their product. I like what they're doing. But if you subscribe to RedX and you never actually make calls, then you're never really going to have anything to happen. And that's the thing that that does kind of suck, if you never make calls, they're just not going to call you. But the guarantee is if you don't make calls, you're not going to set more listing appointments, right? You could do other things. You could do mail. You could do a lot of stuff trying to get listings, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be expensive. This is the most cost-effective prospecting that you can do, is to get on the phone and actually make calls to people that are looking to sell houses, right? So guys, I want to tell you, I have a lot of agents, they have all these crazy things that they think can happen. And it's kind of insane. So I made a little list for you guys of things that I've just never seen happen since I've been in the real estate business. In 14 years, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've seen a lot of agents. I've seen a lot of agents do some crazy things. But in 14 years, I'll tell you, I've never seen these 5 things. Number one, I've never seen anybody get eaten, right? I've never seen an expired seller get mad on the phone and somehow or another come through the phone, I guess like on Star Trek, and telepathically get to your house. But I've never seen anybody get eaten while they're making expired phone calls. Number two, I've never made calls that morning and had anybody to recognize me later that day in Walmart or the grocery store or anywhere, right? I went on listing appointments and had people recognize me later on, but I've never had anybody recognize me later that day that that I made calls to that morning. I don't know. These people, the thing is, these people, they don't know you. They don't really know who you are. Or maybe they've seen your number pop up on the caller ID, but chances are they're not going to recognize you later in the day. So there's no need to worry about them and no need to be scared of them because it's just not going to happen, right? Number three, as mad as some sellers have been every once in a while, I've never had any of them get in their car and actually drive to my office. Like I remember one time, a long time ago, I had this seller, and he was a nasty guy on the phone. He was a nasty guy on the phone, and just a bad guy, And he told me he was going to drive to my office and all this stuff. And anyway, I just hung up on him, and guess what? He didn't drive to my office, and I feel like I haven't had this happen in 14 years. I don't think this really happens, maybe once in, I don't know, thousands of agents, somebody actually drives to your office and does something. Number four, I have never been arrested for making calls to for sale owners and expireds. I've heard some insane things. Agents have said, and they've asked me, oh, well, what about this and what about that and what about this list and that list and all this stuff. But guys, and even with every once in a while, you hear an agent say, oh, the seller told me if I call them back, they're going to call the cops. I've never seen anybody get arrested for calling expireds and for sale owners. I've never seen it happen. The number five thing that I've never seen happen, and this is the big one for a lot of you guys. I've heard this the whole time I've been in the real estate business. What about the do not call list? What about this? What about getting fined or having a legal action? Oh, they can sue you for whatever. In 14 years of calling expireds and for sale owners, I have never seen anybody get fined for making calls. I've heard these stories and stuff, but I've never actually seen anybody say, hey, the guy at XYZ Realty out in Arizona got fined, or the guy here or there got fined. I've never been fined, or I've never been contacted by anybody about fining me. I've never had a legal action brought against me for, calling for sale owners and expireds. Right? I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I haven't seen it. And I feel like in 14 years, and I network pretty heavily across the country. If you guys know of anything, please email it to me, jasonmorriscoaching@gmail.com. But up until this point, up until today, I've just never seen it happen. Right? Now, I do have 5 things that I have seen from making calls. I see, I got somebody that on Facebook, they put, if you're not getting threatened, you're not making enough calls. But I will tell you 5 things I have seen for making calls. Number 1, I've seen really bad agents get listings. I've seen those agents that didn't show up to nothing. I've seen them, they don't return phone calls. They don't do nothing, right? But they get up and they make calls in the morning. They have a really thick, funny accent. I've heard that I have a thick, funny accent sometimes. But I've seen really bad agents get listings. I've seen agents that couldn't go through their paperwork get listings. I've seen agents that, got their license yesterday get listings. I've seen really bad agents get listings. That's one thing for sure I can tell you. Number 2, I've seen agents fall into listings. I've seen agents out there that, hey, you know what? They called a for sale by owner and just, I guess the sun was in the right place in the sky and the stars were all aligned, and the for sale by owner said, hey, why don't you come help me sell my house? I've seen that happen before. Whatever reason, they like the way the person's voice sounded, I guess. I don't know what it is. But I've seen agents just fall into listings. Hey, I've had deals that happen. I'll tell you guys the story. I've had deals that have happened because I was making calls. One of the things that I do is when people tell me, I'm calling that person, I'm following up with them, and they say, oh, we found a buyer for my house. My next answer or next question is always, what can I help you do? And unbelievably, I've had a lot of times where sellers say, oh, well, we don't know what to do. Can you handle the sale for us? Right? And I've went and wrote up the offer. I met with the buyer and seller at the same time, done all the paperwork, went down through it with them, wrote another contract. I've had that to happen. I have fell into deals from making calls, things that were completely unexpected. Number 3, I have had sellers that I have called and left voicemails that called me back. I have had sellers, I'll tell you this, I've had sellers that I've had a great conversation with, and unbelievably, they told me they were going to call me back. And you know what happened? They actually called me back, which is wild when that happens sometimes, because if they call you back, you got a pretty good shot at getting that house. I've had agents in my coaching class, I've had agents that are in my coaching group and stuff that, they've been making calls consistently for 2, 3, 4 months. And now some of them are going, hey, Jason, I had a seller I talked to 3 months ago that I sent my pre-listing package to, and they called me back. They want me to come look at my house. Dude, when that happens, dude, you got the listing. You got the listing when they call you back like that. But it doesn't happen if you never start making calls and you never follow up. You know what I mean? But sometimes sellers call you back. Now, number 4, I'll tell you, this is strange, and I've seen this before. I've had sellers that, you know what? I built a great rapport with them. I followed up with them 5 or 6 times. We had some great, meaningful conversations. We talked about things that, that really helped them, and for some reason they sold their house or decided not to sell their house. But I've had sellers that I provided value to one way or another that referred me to their friends. Now, that's wild. I never even represented them, but I provided enough value on the call that they referred me to their friends. I've had that to happen. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but I'll tell you, it does happen. Number 5, I've talked to sellers that were very nice people that were just in bad situations. And I think this is common. Sometimes when they're angry with you on the phone and they've, their expired listing they've had, they always say, oh, I've had so many agents to call me this morning. It's never really as many as what they say. It might feel like it was 50, but actually it was 5, I've had sellers that were really in bad situations. And if you guys remember week 1, we talked about the mindset of a seller. And, the seller's in just a bad situation. They got let down by their other agent. Their other agent told them all this stuff that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And now they're like a little bit upset about it. And it isn't that they're bad people and they're not angry at you. They're just in a bad situation and they're upset about it. I've had that to happen a lot. And it sucks. But here's the thing, like lots of times if I talk to them, I follow up with them, I build rapport, I catch them on a good day, right? And they tell me about their situation, I can help them with it. I've had that to happen a lot. And it's really, really great when that does happen, because that is the thing that we're doing as agents. The biggest thing that we're doing is we're problem solvers. Typically, these people want to sell their house, and usually it's because they have a problem. Usually they're wanting to move up, move down, move sideways, reasons me and you can't even imagine sometimes. And they're just, and the thing is, they're just in a situation they don't like, and lots of times with expireds, they've been let down by one agent, and they're transferring that negative energy towards you, but it's not really that bad, you know? So guys, I want to go over with you 3 strategies for overcoming fear. I believe that fear sometimes can be used, right? There's sometimes where sometimes there's the fear of, hey, we don't want to get out of our car because there's a dog there, you know, but the other thing is, if we don't get out of our car, you know, something worse is going to happen, like we got to go to the bathroom really bad, right? So is your fear of not making it to the bathroom in time greater than, you know, being chased by the dog in the house, you know? Sometimes we have to look at that, but I really believe that we can use fear, and I believe that fear is not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, you know? The number one thing I think that we need to do sometimes when we are afraid of something is figure out, what do you fear more? And this could be a lot of different things in your life. You know, for some of you guys, what happens if your business stays the way it is right now, right? You don't make changes. You don't start listing more property. Are you going to have to go back to your old job? You know, what was your old job, and was it really bad? You know what I mean? I mean, you really hated, you know, I've got a couple of coaching clients that are police officers, believe it or not. I mean, you know, I can't imagine being a police officer. It's got to be a stressful job. You know, you never know. You know, you could go to work today and get shot at. I've never been shot at in the real estate industry. You know, I don't want a job where I could possibly get shot at. But Tommy Pierce, he's on the call right now. He's a police officer. You know, and he's crushing real estate. And I feel like part of that is because he fears what's going to happen if he's a police officer another 10 years, another 15 years. You know, what is going to happen? What could happen? You know what I mean? It's a stressful job where you're dealing with typically police officers aren't dealing with good people. You know, but what do you fear more? Is it going to be your spouse? Another I told you so. Are you not going to be able to do something for your kids that you've promised them, right? Are you not going to be able to do something for your spouse that you promised them? Or possibly if you don't go list a house, you know, maybe selling real estate's your dream. You really like it. You like all the stuff about it. But if you don't sell more, you're going to have to quit, you know? What do you fear more than getting on the phone? Because really getting on the phone isn't that bad. I'm going to tell you in a minute the worst things I've ever seen from people getting on the phone. And I feel like sometimes that if we know more about what we're afraid of, then all of a sudden we're not really afraid of it anymore, you know? So number 2, I got this from Tony Robbins, and I heard Jack Canfield talk about it, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it, that that fear can't live in a grateful mind, like being grateful for things, and being fearful can't exist in your mind at the same time. So one of the strategies that I've done over the years for even myself is I made a list of all the things that I was grateful for, all the things that I was thankful for in my life, you know, the things that I was really thankful that I was able to do, you know, live where I want to live, go to dinner where I want to go, you know, drive the vehicle I want to drive, you know, all these things that you're grateful for. And sometimes looking down through those things before you start making phone calls and just being appreciative about those things, you know, can put you in just a whole different mindset. And I've actually got a 4th one that I want to go through that I left off of my list here. But number 3, list out your goals. You know, I feel like this is something that we don't do well enough, you know, or don't do often enough. Sometimes I think that we make goals and then we don't ever look at them again. A lot of agents I see, they make goals at the first of the year, end of the year, and then they never pull out that goal sheet and look at it again. Now, I tell you what, this other strategy I think I'm going to save to the end here, but it's something that I use, and I even use it before calls like this to overcome this. Because I mean, like right now, I think we're live in 3 different places, and I think, you know, gosh, we got over 100 people on the call, you know, live, and I'm sure it'll be listened to a few times. So, you know, I often have the thought like, hey, if I mess up, if I If I mess up, not it isn't like one person's going to hear it. It's like 500 people are going to hear this, plus the Facebook replays and all that stuff. So, I'll share this last strategy with you guys at the end. So, I want to talk about the worst things I've ever had to happen on a call. So these are the worst things I've ever had to happen. Is the number one thing I've had happen that was really bad is that people hung up on me. Maybe they said something really mean and they hung up on me, but still they hung up on me. They disconnected our conversation. They disconnected our communication, right? They hung up on me. Number two, the next worst thing that I've ever had happen on the phone is I hung up on somebody. Hey, they said something. I called them. They said something I didn't like. You know what I mean? And hey, you know what? They called me stupid or told me I had a funny accent or whatever it is. But whatever it is, I hung up on them. That's the worst things that can happen in a conversation. And you think about it. I mean, we're all adults that are listening to this. We're all adults. We've all been hung up on before, right? If you're an adult and you haven't been hung up on the phone by somebody before, then I guess you haven't lived. But we've all been hung up on before, and we've all hung up on somebody. It's not that big of a deal. You either call them right back or you call them back the next day, or you don't worry about it. So, guys, I want to get into the listing appointment today. And what do you do? But first thing I want to do is I feel like there's 4 different types of objections, and I'm going to briefly go down through this with you. I went down through them in depth in my group coaching this morning. There's 4 types of objections that you're going to have, and I feel like I've classified these things or broke it down into 4 types of objections you're going to get. Everything else that you're going to get is possibly a condition, and the difference between a condition and objection is a condition is something that's real. Like, for example, a tree fell on their roof. It isn't going to do anybody any good to list a house today that a tree is laying on the roof. That is a real condition. Objections, sometimes objections are nothing more than smoke screens. There's some mental block that somebody has to get through, and oftentimes that's not real, or maybe it's a concern, but usually it's a mental thing. But here's the thing. There's 4 types of objections. Number 1 is time. You could have objections that deal with time. They can't meet you at a certain time. They don't like the time that you want to put on the listing contract, right? There's listing agents out there that think they should list their house for 12 months, which is insane in an up market. You don't need a 12-month listing, right? Number 2, the second type of objection you're going to get is involving money. They can't get enough for their house. They can't pay you, right? Number 3 is a stall objection. Now, a stall objection is this is one of these things that's happening out there in the world that's lots of times is a hopeful seller that thinks something's going to happen if they just don't do it today, right? They got a buyer. We're in a second home market. They got a buyer that's coming down in 3 weeks, and they think if that buyer can come down, then that's just going to happen, a lot of people here think that, but here's the truth. Like, typically if it's a buyer that's really got the cash, really been requalified by the bank, they're not coming to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina just to look at one house. They're coming to look at a bunch of houses, right? The number 4 type of objection you're going to get is dealing with your service. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about your listing presentation that goes ahead and attempts to overcome these objections before you have them. Does that sound good with you guys? Click the like button if you're on Facebook, if that sounds good, or raise your hand if you guys are on Zoom. We're going to talk about a listing presentation that overcomes these objections before you get them, which is amazing. A lot of agents don't realize that you can do that. It's almost like you got psychic abilities when you start doing these things, overcoming objections before you get them. Now, what to do before a listing appointment? Now, I'm going to go down through my listing appointment. We're going to go back through these objections, and we're going to I'm going to help you guys overcome these objections before you get them. Now, what do you need to do before your listing appointment? The number 1 thing you do when you set an appointment on the phone is you send them your pre-listing package. Okay, your pre-listing package, my pre-listing package tells about me, my team, and what we do to sell houses, right? Now, if we go back to objections, this is what our service is. 9 out of 10 agents in your market, I guarantee, have nothing they can send a seller that's pre-prepared on the desktop of their computer that they can send to them right now. This pre-listing package tells about your service. It justifies the money they are going to pay you. Remember, money was number 2 and service was number 4. For you guys that didn't get that, I want you to write these down because we're going to go through them. Number 1 is time. It's time objection. Number 2 is a money objection. Number 3 is the stall objection, right? If we wait just a little bit, this will happen. Number 4 is the service objection. Okay, your pre-listing package is going to help you overcome that service objection before you ever get to their house, right? Because it tells what you do, what you and your team do to sell houses. It tells about you, your team, and what you do to sell houses, right? Now, we're assuming the time objection has probably already been overcome because you actually do have an appointment with them. Now, sometimes with the time objection, you do have to be kind of smart and you have to ask additional questions, but still, we'll get to that here in just a second. Okay, number 2, you're going to pull comparables. You're going to do research on their property before you get to their house. Now, here's the thing about what I do. I got this funny idea, and some of you guys might not agree with it, but I don't care because it works, right? And it works for agents all around the country. Now, what I do is called an active pricing strategy. Now, I got this belief that feels like it's basic economics to me, but still, you know, for some people it might not be. But if I put my house on the market today, and a buyer wants to buy in the area I live in today, they are only able to choose a home from what is on the market today, right? For example, if you want to buy bed sheets, you go to JCPenney, and they don't have the bed sheets that you want to buy for the price that you're willing to pay. You've got 2 options. You can either wait until they go on sale, or you can go to another store. So a buyer looking today, if they can't find the house they want in the area they want to live, they've got 3 options, I guess. They either can go to a different area, which may have a house they want for the price they want to pay. Number 2, they can wait and hope a house comes on sale, wait and hope a deal comes on the market, which typically right now, if you're getting a deal on it, there's something wrong with it. The house is going to be in rough shape, right? Or there's going to be multiple offers. Or number 3, they can increase their price range. That's all you can do. They can hope that they can go back to the bank and get a little bit more price. But they can't buy the house that sold 6 months ago, right? They can't buy the house that sold 2 years ago. If the house that sold 6 months ago comes back on the market today, I guarantee every one of you that are listening to this, that house will be at a higher price. Does that make sense to you guys? Raise your hand if it does on Zoom, or click the heart button if it does. I mean, that makes sense to me, right? If we're looking at new cars, we go down to the Chevrolet dealership, and Chevrolet doesn't have a car I want for the price I want to pay. Only thing I could do, I either got to spend more money, go to a different dealership, or hope one goes on sale somewhere. One goes on sale, it's probably going to have a lot of miles on it, right? If a house goes on sale, it's probably got something wrong with it, or there's going to be a lot of offers on it. But now when you use this pricing strategy, now hopefully on the call, if you use the scripts and stuff that we talked about, you already know the price that they're looking for their house, right? And you're going to build your pricing strategy to see if you can justify that price. Sometimes you can't justify the price, right? Sometimes when you look at active competition, sometimes the competition is stiff. They need 150 for their house, and all the rest of them in the neighborhood are 110. But sometimes, sometimes you have to be creative. Sometimes you have to look at the features in their house, right? Do they have a brand new roof? Do they have a 2-car garage where the rest of them in the community don't have a 2-car garage, right? You have to be very thorough when you do this research. Because this is going to overcome the money objection, right? Number two is money, right? Either what they get for their house or how they're paying you. If you can justify a price that's high enough to get them what they want plus pay you, that eliminates number two. That eliminates the money objection. They can't say, oh, that's not enough. If they've already told you the price, you've already confirmed the price with them when you walk through the door. So number three, we're going to go a step further with this money objection, because a lot of people think that money's the problem. Money is almost never the problem. Commission is almost never the real objection. The problem is we make it the real objection. Lots of times the reason why everyone gets hung up on your commission rate is because you're hung up on your commission rate. You don't believe that you're providing enough value to the client for what you're charging them. Have you guys ever felt like that? If you're charging 5, 6, 7% of $200,000, man, that's a lot of money. That adds up, right? Sometimes I feel like, man, I did such a great job for them that, man, sometimes I feel like I didn't get paid enough, and I got paid my full commission, you know? And that's right, Jenny. I earn every single dollar of the commission that I charge, right? Commission is never the objection for me personally, right? But this net sheet, I want to tell you what's included, because a lot of agents get hung up on net sheets. So the thing that I include is I like to have 3 columns. I like to have a low column, a middle column, and a high column. The middle column is where I really want to put their house at. Okay, that's really where I want to list it. That's the sweet spot, I feel like. Now, sometimes when you get over to a house, you get over to somebody's house, their house isn't exactly what you thought. You kind of got to go with the low column, you know. Sometimes their house is a lot better than what you thought, and you can justify the high column. Sometimes, they didn't tell you they had a sunroom. They didn't tell you that they were on the pond. They didn't tell you they were on a double lot that's a corner. You know what I mean? That they're one of 4 houses that back up to a wooded preserve. You know what I mean? So sometimes you got the high column there for a purpose, but what's included is things that are commonly included in the cost of closing and selling your home, right? This would be attorney fees, title company fees. In my area, it's pretty customary that the seller pays for the CL 100 or the termite inspection. So I go ahead and put it in there. The other thing is that, let's see, I always like to put a miscellaneous. It's $1,000 in there. I always put administrative fee too, because it seems like in our area, the attorneys always hit your client up for a FedEx fee or something like that. But I put the miscellaneous in there to cover anything that we might be leaving out. Now, a lot of agents get hung up on a lot of these variables. And I put transfer taxes. In our area, we have transfer taxes. So I include those in my net sheet too. A lot of agents get really hung up, though, on the idea that they got to know what the person owes. What they owe doesn't really matter. They know what they owe. What they want to see, when the purpose of the net sheet is to show them what they're going to be left with after all the common expenses are taken out of the final sales price. So that's what's included. Now, this net sheet is going to help you overcome the commission objection. It's going to help you overcome the money objection, right? They're going to see what they're paying for your service. Pre-listing package hopefully helped you overcome the service objection. So number 4. This also is with the service objection. Also, when you're going down through all this stuff, you want to have a sense of urgency. The comparable will show you what's going on today. If we put your house, and you want to make statements like that, because remember, time is an objection for a lot of people. Michael, you guys can see an example of my net sheet. Actually, I think I've got the Excel version in the files section of Becoming a Prospecting Master. So you guys can see a copy of my net sheet. But I like to show up to the appointment like over prepared. Like I want to know everything. I want to have information about what's happening in the community. I want to tell them how their house is greater or less than the other houses. I want to be super prepared, and I show up with the paperwork filled out. Now, this is where it's filled out completely. I'm talking about I don't leave a blank. Well, I'll tell you, the only blank I leave is the price blank, but I got the commission blank filled in. I tell you what, when you're sitting there in front of them and you're filling in the commission blank, that is their last chance to negotiate commissions with you. If you show up and it's already filled out, people just aren't as likely to negotiate with you. It happens all the time, right? But I show up with it all filled out. I got it highlighted everywhere they need to initial and sign. I believe that most agents, this is where they miss getting deals. If you learn how to effectively go over your paperwork and you start showing up ready to do business, I'm talking about the sign is in the trunk of my car. I got a lockbox in the passenger seat floorboard. I am ready to go, right? If you start showing up and you start filling out your paperwork before you get there, like completely filling it out, highlighting everywhere they need to initial and sign, I tell you, you start preparing for your appointments like this, it's going to give you an amount of confidence that's going to be unbelievable, right? You're going to have everything with you. How many of you guys, raise your hand if you ever done this. You ever showed up to the listing appointment and you haven't been prepared and you felt like it went really bad, but the reason it went really bad was because you didn't prepare? Have you ever done that? Actually, you don't even have to raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah, we've all done that. I've done that before too, and you have that little nervous feeling in your stomach. And then, and you're thinking the whole time like, oh man, I didn't prepare. This isn't going well. And then it doesn't go well. And for some reason you're surprised, right? I mean, it's kind of like if you just, if you've been really busy and you keep going, oh, I'm really busy and I got this and this and this to do. And if I do this and this and this, I'm going to be really tired on Saturday. And you keep saying that over and over in your mind. And then all of a sudden on Saturday, you're really tired and you kind of act like you're surprised. What if you started preparing for every single listing appointment like you're going to get the listing? And you're going to get the listing and you're going to start working on selling their house today after you meet with them. And you filled it all out. You've done everything. Like just taking those actions are going to it's going to send that signal to your brain that, hey, we're ready to do business. And you're going to show up ready to do business. It's kind of weird how that happens, So guys, the actual listing appointment. So we just talked about what happens before your listing appointment. And Frankie, you're right. Showing up with a lockbox, showing up with your paperwork, showing up with everything, you're letting them know. You're subliminally telling yourself that you're going to get the listing right, and they are seeing everything. You're going to list their house. Everybody knows what's going on, right? Now, the listing appointment, what happens? What happens there? Now, guys, I don't like to do a formal listing presentation. One thing I've learned over the years is the longer I stay at their house, the least likely it is that I'm gonna list the house. My listing appointments are quick. 30 minutes, I'm either signing paperwork or walking out to my car. And I think that's how you guys need to do. This is not a social visit. So, and I know how it is, man. I live in the South. People are nice. I'm from the South. Everybody's really friendly. It's not a big deal for them to invite you in, offer you a seat on the couch and then fix you a glass of sweet tea. It happens. I mean, it's really hard. Everybody's really hospitable. And what ends up happening sometimes, this used to happen to me all the time before I kind of realized it, I'd go to somebody's house. I'd stay for an hour and a half, 2 hours. They would love me. They love everything I talked about. We talk about their grandkids and all their stuff and, fishing and hunting. And, they'd show me, their mounted deer heads and whatever it is. And, man, I'd leave the appointment like, man, I got that. I got their listing. They just wanted to think about it, but they really liked me. And then 2-3 weeks went by, and I couldn't get them on the phone. And what happened was I pulled up MLS and saw they listed with another agent. The thing is, the only reason they're letting you come to their house is because they want to sell their house. And really, the only reason you're there is because it's your job. I want to make sure you guys understand that. When you go to your doctor's office, the only reason you're at the doctor's office is because you have a sore throat. And the only reason your doctor is looking at your sore throat is because it's his job. And you guys know when you go to somebody's house, or when you go to the doctor, you might make a little small talk. You might make you guys might be friendly. You might know each other. Your kids might play on the same football team or whatever it is. But really, the only reason you're there is because you're sick. The only reason these people are letting you come to their house is because they want to sell it and they think that you might can bring them a buyer. And the only reason that you're really there is because, hey, you sell houses. It's kind of interesting when you really start thinking about it that way. So what happens? Number one, you got to show up early. Now, this whole process, one of the things you're doing is you want to overcome those objections. And I tell you, if you show up early, you're there to do business. If you show up 20, 30 minutes late, believe me, they are going to have a problem with that. But showing up early, you've just got to do it. You've got to do it. You're always better off to be 15 minutes early than 15 minutes late. I mean, number one thing I do, I show up to their house really early. I like to sit in the drive. I like to park in the driveway. If there's not room in the driveway, I park on the curb. Just depends on what type of community and stuff it is, and where I guess you're allowed to park. But I like to sit there for a few minutes, thumb through my paperwork really quick, and just kind of go over everything. Just make sure I've got it. Hopefully they come to the door. In the ideal situation, they come to the door and wave at me like, hey, come on in. That's the ideal situation. But that doesn't happen all the time, So anyway, I always go knock on the door. Knock on the door, stand back. Remember, the biggest thing we have is trust. In this whole process, you need to be building trust. If they don't trust you, they're not going to work with you for sure. So I knock on the door, ring the doorbell, stand back a couple of feet so they can kind of see who it is there. I always hand them a business card, right? You send them your pre-listing package. You hand them your business card. They're confirming, hey, Jason Morris sent me that package telling about me and his team. I didn't have to go look him up I didn't have to Google him to make sure he's a realtor, right? There's a lot of Craigslist crazies out there nowadays. You know what I mean? Believe me, people are Googling you to make sure you're who you say you are, right? So I always bring a business card because I feel like that's a professional thing to do. I always greet everybody at the door. I always shake hands, nice firm hand grip. I think that sometimes, first impressions, now when I walk through the door, the thing I always do is I want to confirm they received the email from me. Hey, you guys, you got my pre-appointment package, right? I just want to make sure. Fantastic. Now, once I confirm they've got that, I always ask, hey, so who wants to give me the tour? Now, I see a lot of agents do this, is they say, oh, I want you to sit on the couch while I tour your home. Think about this. You just had a random person call you on the phone, show up at your door talking about selling your house. Now they're telling you, hey, Tommy, yeah, I'm Jason Morris. I'd like for you to sit on your couch while I look around your house by myself. Think about that. Does that build trust? You're not looking, if I don't know you, you're not looking around my house by yourself, right? People are crazy in this world. Do you want a random stranger coming into your house and just looking around by themselves? Does that make sense to you guys? I see a lot of agents do this where they want to look at the house by themselves. I think that's a bad idea. I don't think that builds trust. I always ask for the tour. Let the husband or the wife or the kids or whoever wants to give me the tour, give me the tour. Now, hopefully, I like to do it with the decision maker. I like to do it with the person I talk to on the phone. That way, when we're walking around the house, I like to ask yes questions. Hey, Did you guys do the flooring yourself? You said that you had new flooring. You said there was a new roof. You said the hot water heater. I like to go through the things we talked about on the phone and confirm a couple of things. Number one, that I was listening when we were talking. Number two, that I'm really interested in their house. Anything I see that's a problem, I like to point it out. I like to confirm price. During the tour, I always confirm price. If they told me they wanted to walk away with $100,000, at some point, I like to turn to them and say, hey, Mr. Seller or Miss Seller, you guys said you wanted $100,000, right? Oh, fantastic. Good. So now, once we do the tour, when we get to the end of it, this typically takes about 10 or 15 minutes for me. I always say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I always do a lot of research before I come to the house. Would you mind if we sat at your kitchen table and we go down through what I found out? Now, in 14 years of selling real estate and going on listing appointments, since I started doing this at least, I've never had anybody say, hey, I understand you've done a lot of research, but we don't want to see it. Please leave now. I've never had that to happen. I've had listing appointments that went wrong, but I've never had anybody say, no, we don't want to see the stuff you looked up, right? Everybody always wants to see it. So I like to share it with them. And now I like to sit at the end of the table, right? I like to sit at the end of the table where the one party can get on one side, the other party can get on the other. The husband can sit on one side, the wife can sit on the other. Now, and that way I can sit there kind of between them and I can go through the paperwork with them. I can show them the pricing strategy. I can go down through the comparables with them. I like to talk about what's happening in the market now. If we put your house on the market today, this is what we have that we are competing against. I like to explain my pricing strategy, just like I explained it to you guys. I like to explain it and I like to tell how I come up with the price, and I want to share my research with them. Now, here's the thing, guys, and I probably should have shared this with you a little bit ago. Now, your net sheet and your pricing strategy, you need to prepare your net sheet so that it supports your pricing strategy. You can't show up with comparables telling one story in a net sheet that tells a different one, right? So once I go down through the pricing strategy, tell them about the research I found, is I like to thanks, Eric. I like to say, guys, now if we put your house on the market today, this is where I think we should put it. I like to pull out my net sheet, and say, hey guys, I like to point to the middle column, and I like to pull out, also have my comparables there. The guys, like we talked about, you guys want $150,000 for your house, or you guys want $100,000 for your house. Right now, based on what's on the market, if we put your house on the market today, we can list it for $109,000. Once real estate commissions, attorney fees, all this stuff comes out of it, that's going to put you about $102,000. I know you guys said you want $100 for it. With that $102, would that be acceptable for you? Right? You want to put them in a position where they can't tell you no, right? They told you on the phone they wanted $100 for it. They told you in the house they wanted $100 for it. They told you they wanted $100,000 while they're sitting at the table. Now you're showing them how, if they put it on the market for $109,900, where it's going to be priced based on the competition and what's going to happen, what all's going to come out of it. They're going to put $102,000 in their pocket. They've been telling you $100,000. Can they tell you that $102,000 will not be acceptable? Think about it. If they tell you it's not going to be acceptable, how can they do that? Right? Could you tell me that was unacceptable? So now the next thing you need to do is you need to close. Right? You need to close, and you have to ask for the business. You have to ask for the business, right? You have to ask them, hey guys, are you ready for me to get started working for you today? Guys, I brought all the paperwork with me. How about we go over it real quick so you can see what we have to do to get started, right? And then the number six thing you need to do is go over the paperwork with them. It's really that simple. I see guys all the time, where they don't bring the paperwork with them. Now, think about this. If you guys went through this whole thing, you done the tour, you showed up early, you brought business cards, you asked for the tour, you had a great tour of their house, you guys talked about everything going on with the house looks fantastic, you went over all the research, you went over the net sheet, they were excited about the stuff, but you didn't bring your paperwork with you filled out. Then what happens there? That momentum you've built working towards getting the business, signing the paperwork, and getting started comes to a stall. Or what happens then if you shared all this great research with them and you say, guys, I'll have to come back and get the paperwork? What happens to all that stuff that happened just now? Right? Number 6, the thing you need to do is go over the paperwork. And, just like we talked about with scripts and dialogues, you need to be completely prepared, have all this stuff filled out, highlighted, everything, go down through it on that 3rd grade level, not because your clients are dumb, but because your clients don't look at legal paperwork all the time. This is a legal contract they're signing. There's some scary big words in there, and you want to be able to explain it to them in the easiest possible way, right? Now, I see there's a couple of questions, and I'll get to them here at the end because I'm almost finished. But, guys, the number 1 tip that I can tell you to help you with this is you have to show up prepared. Now, let's touch back on these objections, right? Now, you're telling them what's going to happen today with their house. Hopefully, you've shown enough of a sense of urgency, describing your pricing strategy, going through the comparables, that you have overcome that objection of time. You've overcome that objection of time, and hopefully you've done a good job doing that. Sometimes they do have some other objections, but dealing with time, but you've talked about what happens if we do it today. Number 2, hopefully you've overcome the objection about money. You showed them what their house is going to sell for, what they're competing against. You showed them your net sheet, justified the amount you're charging through your pre-appointment package. Number 3, stall. Now, this is an interesting objection. Now, I was just asked, Jenny asked here, and I want to touch on her question here because I think this comes through it. Now, they stall. At this point, they said they'd like to interview another agent. Oh, gosh. Well, here's the thing. We work with other agents. Do you have one in mind that you want to talk to? Oh, fantastic. It's somebody that works with your husband or somebody that works with your wife. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, we do work with other agents. We went through that real quick. I'll be glad to send them all the information. They're welcome to bring their buyers. Right? They like to interview another agent. Oh, they like to think about it. That's one of the biggest things. Oh, well, we'd like to think about it. Well, sometimes when they say they want to think about it, sometimes it's something that you didn't address. Oh, no problem. I understand this is a big decision you guys want to make. Is there something specific you want to think about? Sometimes it may be something in the paperwork they didn't quite understand. Sometimes it may be just something about your process they didn't understand. Sometimes I've had clients say, hey, we wanted newspaper ads and you didn't mention a newspaper ad, I've had some stuff like that that's kind of funky, but if they say they want to think about it, ask them what do they want to think about. I think that's a great question to ask. If they say they want to interview another agent, fantastic. What agent would you like to interview? Okay, sounds great. Well, I'll tell you what, we can go ahead and get started. I'll be glad to email them over the pictures. And, they're welcome to bring their buyers. We do split the commission with agents that have qualified buyers. We do work with other agents. We work with every agent that's a part of the multiple listing service. Now, Frankie, my marketing strategy, is it's in my pre-listing package, and this is exactly how I tell them. You guys said that you got my pre-listing package, right? Well, going through that, we market two different ways. We market to the general public looking for our own qualified buyers, and we make sure that every agent in our market has access to the information about your house so that they can send it to their qualified buyers as well. And my pre-appointment package details all that out. So guys, I got some time for some question and answer here. Now, I want to tell you guys another strategy about overcoming fear, and something that I use a lot. I'm a big believer in being able to control your state. If you can control your state and the frame of mind that you're in, then you can probably control your life, right? If you can control the way that you feel, then that's a big deal, right? What would happen if you felt good every single day? And I believe we can do this. I believe that you can feel good every single day, right? I believe that you can have rituals. You can have things that trigger you, things that make you feel good. And I think it's important that you know what things make you feel good, right? And what rituals you can do. I'll tell you one thing for me, that every morning, man, as soon as I smell coffee brewing, coffee puts me in it's go time. All right, it's time to go to work. I like coffee, and it's one of those things that triggers me. Music's a big thing for people. Having those songs that really get you up and going. It's hard to be sad when you're listening to Pitbull and Black Eyed Peas, right? Now, one thing that I've encouraged agents to do is, have that soundtrack. When you're on your way to the office, those songs. You're on your way to the office to start making calls, man. You're listening to all your favorite songs. Those, not the crying in your beer songs, but the songs that make you want to get up and scream and sing along with it. I think that if you can do that, and those things, and you create that playlist. I got all kind of secret playlists, that get me all pumped up. The ones I like to listen to on the way to listing appointments, the ones I like to listen to before I make calls, the songs I like to listen to before I do a webinar like this, that just get me up and going. The ones that make me feel like, hey, I'm gonna just take over the world. So I got a couple other questions here. If they say they want to think about it, would it be okay to respond? May I ask what you'd like to think about it? Did I not cover something? I think that you owe it to them to ask them that. I think that you owe it to them to ask, is there something that you're concerned about, right? If you don't ask, how are they going to know, right? I believe that they benefit more by working with you than you benefit from working with them. Them working with a licensed agent does a multitude of things. We talked about that last week on day 2. But I believe that you have to ask. I believe that you owe it to them and you owe it to yourself to ask. Dean on Facebook said, it sounds arrogant. Put yourself in their shoes, being inundated with calls from agents all saying and making the same promises. I don't care what other agents promise. I only know that I sell houses, and I know what I promise, right? And I've got a pre-listing package that can show you exactly what it is. Other agents don't have one, and this is the wild thing. You know what? I love the objection. One of my favorite objections to get is, oh, well, we've got another agent we'd like to talk to when you're on the phone. Oh, we think we want to interview multiple agents. Well, that's fantastic. One thing I'd like for you to do is ask them for their marketing package. I want to send you over my marketing package, and I'd like for you to ask for their marketing package too. That way you can sit them side by side and compare. And the reason I ask them to do that is because I know that 99% of the agents in my market and in most markets around the country do not have a prepared pre-listing package they can send to clients. So what other questions do you guys have? What things can I help you with? What things do you have today that maybe I didn't cover or that you have questions about that I can help you with? Let's see. Let's see. Have you ever come up against a person who met the other agent with a pre-listing package with 84 points of marketing? Oh yeah, gosh, I've seen the 84 point marketing package. I've seen the I've seen gosh, I've seen all kind of stuff, right? The 150 point marketing package, the 110 point marketing plan, all that stuff. Now, here's the thing. um, I don't think that's a big deal because honestly, most of them are stupid, and most sellers aren't going to read through your 150 point marketing plan. Most sellers, I've seen agents that I've seen agents that have these amazing packages, and truly they are amazing. They're 50, 60 pages, of all like really good information. Now, the thing that I have, I think that all people are the same, and I think that typically, if somebody sends me basically an unsolicited PDF that's 60 pages, I'm not going to read it. I mean, I'm sometimes people send me things that, hey, I actually want to read. It's 60 pages of PDF that I got to read on my phone. It's not like a Kindle book. You got to read it on your phone or read it on your computer or print it out. Most people just aren't going to look at it. And, the 84 points of marketing, it's an easy thing. Really, well, how many of those points do you think they're really going to do? I mean, that's number one. And number two is most of those points are just the same thing over and over. Now, I have everything in my pre-appointment package. I don't take flyers with me. I don't take any of that stuff. Everything is in my pre-listing package, right? So everything's in there. I don't bring any other paperwork with me. I don't bring things I've created for listings. I don't bring websites that I built for each listing. Honestly, it's all in my appointment package. I ask them to look at it before I get there. They already know what I do before I get there. A lot of agents that go down through stuff until you just wearing the people out. Like, there's a coach out there that has like a 2-hour listing presentation, and they actually want you to go down through it. And typically what happens is at the end of 2 hours, everybody's eyes are rolling back in their head. And honestly, they just want you to leave their house. You need to be quick, you need to be professional, and you need to go through all that stuff as quickly and professionally as you can. I believe the longer you stay at their house and the more you overwhelm them with stuff, the least likely it is that you're going to get the listing. Now, Frankie asks how to overcome the concept of not speaking Chinese or Hindi or another language. Okay, so you're working in an area where you have a lot of people that don't speak English. I'll be honest with you, that's really difficult. If I was the same way, if I was in an area that a lot of people didn't speak English, and English is the only language I speak. I mean, I know like really, really basic Spanish, like I can ask you where the bathroom is and tell you I don't speak Spanish, and that's about it. That is going to make things more difficult. Now, here's the thing though, not everybody that lives there speaks English. I'd focus on the people you can work with. You might want to find another agent to work with or kind of partner up on these that does speak Chinese, that does speak these other languages. And that's what I would personally do. Is I would look for another agent to work with that does speak these languages. Let's see. My group coaching, if you go to jasonmorrisgroupcoaching.com, it's a month. That gives you the overview of the whole thing. It's $50 a month right now. You can go look at it there. Let's see. Gosh, I got another question about my group coaching. jasonmorrisgroupcoaching.com is the website for it. Julia asks, I can't seem to get out of my head my fear of to call them. I've been trying to pump myself up, but I mess up my words. I've been trying to practice scripts, but I feel like I'm a robot when I'm using them. Here's the thing, Julia. Everybody's bad on the first day. Everybody's bad on the first day. So don't worry about it. Just do it. The best practice you can get is actually being on the phone. Everybody's going to mess up. It's like riding a bicycle, it sucked. It sucked. You got some scraped knees, you had to have the training wheels on there, and this script is your training wheel, right? Um, you just got to get on the phone and do it. Make you a list of things that you fear worse than getting on the phone, and put that music on that pumps you up and makes you feel good, and subscribe to RedX so you have a dialer so you can just push start and just wait for somebody to answer the phone. Don't hesitate. Just do it, right? Julie asked, how can you find a great place to make a pre-listing package to end expired when you go to the door? I would just use my template. If you go to jasonmorrisprelistingpackage.com, you can get my template there. And that's what I would do. And I would make it short, like 10, 12, 14 pages. That's it. Easy to print. I see a lot of agents that they like to use their brokerage cover colors as the background, and the whole background's red or the whole background's blue or whatever color your brokerage is. The thing is, when you do that, it makes it really hard and really expensive to print. I like to have a lot of white space. What if they tell you the other agent has a team and I'm a broker by myself? You know what, Camille? I always have my 30-second elevator pitch. What is that unique selling advantage with your working with your brokerage? I'm a broker by myself. Hey, I'm a boutique brokerage. I'm from the area. Whatever it is, I specialize in homes just like yours. I hate for you to be just another number with their team. The other thing is, you're going to work directly with me. I think this is a big one. A lot of these agents that have teams, they go to the listing appointment, and then the person's never going to be able to talk with them on the phone again. When I go list your house, you are working with Jason Morris. You're not working with Jason Morris's third assistant that you can only email on Tuesdays, right? And I think that's important that you let them know that they will be working directly with you. So is there something I'd bring if you're going to an expired home instead of calling them? Now, I don't like the door knock. Now, here's the reason I don't like the door knock is because I feel like by the time that I knock on 5 or 6 doors, I could have probably called, instead of knocking on 5 doors, I probably could have called 50 numbers, to be honest with you, especially using a dialer. I think the highest, most effective use of your time is actually using a dialer or making calls rather than actually going door to door. And here's another thing: when you're calling, your no door knocking expireds, that's a hard thing. Like my market's big. I mean, I'm in the biggest county. I live on the south end of basically where my MLS services are, closer to the south end. For me to drive through the north end, especially during the summer, it's an hour and a half one way, right? So I'm not going to drive an hour and a half to knock on one door and then drive back home. And a lot of markets, you're just not going to get enough. Now, I drive an hour and a half to go to a listing appointment. I'd do that with no problems. I wouldn't hesitate. But I wouldn't drive an hour and a half to go knock on the door. I think your most effective time spent is spent actually making calls to the people. So, let's see. What did I charge when I fall into a deal with a for sale owner and just write up the paperwork? Trenton, like I don't want to go into commission rates or anything, but, I'll reduce my normal fees and I'll do something that'll work, it's just whatever you think's fair. It's a flat fee fair, is 2% fair, 3% fair, if you're just showing up to write up paperwork. What's your time worth and how much time do you think you're going to have in it, And I always think of myself as I always feel like I have a minimum commission. I think it's a good idea and a good practice for everybody to have a minimum commission. I cannot work for you unless I get paid blank. This is the minimum that I can work for you. Yeah, my coaching calls, they're all posted in my group coaching group. So you can always go down through the archives. They're all in there. So it's actually on, it's in the Facebook group. If you guys are in my group coaching, I missed that one this morning. Let's see, what type of headset do I use? I've got a Logitech headset. honestly, I spent like $50 from Walmart. I mean, you could probably go on Amazon and probably buy one that's a little bit better, but I'll kind of like Logitech. Um, Adam asked, how often do I call through a filtered list? For example, you have a Red X filter for expireds in a particular city. How often will you call that list? Adam, I like to call that list once, twice a week, just depending on who I've talked to and who I haven't talked to in there. Now, my follow-up calls, like I like to follow up with everybody a minimum of once a week. Nobody ever says hey, I didn't work with Jason Morris because he didn't follow up with me, right? Or he followed up too much. Nobody ever says, hey, that agent followed up too much, just couldn't work with them. They kept me too informed. I mean, that's a problem that we have in the real estate industry. We think we're calling them too much because we think we're bothering them, right? I will tell you, you're never bothering somebody if you're providing them useful, valuable information. So I tell you guys, I got time for like one, two more questions. Do you guys have any other questions? You guys are still in the call. Guys, I do group coaching. These type of calls give you an idea of what that group coaching's like. You can go to jasonmorrisgroupcoaching.com and sign up for it. It's easy. It's $50 a month. It's a month-to-month membership. Let's see. I saw a couple people raise their hand, but I didn't see them. I didn't see the questions pop up. Let's see. Objections about time. They're not ready yet. Guys, you know what? If they're not ready, you just got to follow up with them. We all run into that too. We all run into that time where, hey, you know what? We want to buy. Hey, I wanted to buy a new TV for our living room, right? I wanted to buy a new TV for our living room, but honestly, I just didn't want to take our old TV down. I just wanted a bigger one, And the time came when my other one broke. You know what I mean? Wasn't that I didn't want the product. It wasn't that I didn't want it. It just, just wasn't a good time for me. So you wrote a book for sellers. When do you think is a good time to give it to them at the listing appointment? You wrote it to establish yourself as an authority in your area. I would send anything like that before I came to their house. I would prefer to email it to them before I got there because, if you give it to them before they got there, there's a chance they might look through it. If you give it to them there, I don't know what your book's about Jenny, but you could be in a position where you create another objection for yourself. You know what I mean? Where you're going, hey, look, I'm giving you this book, and they're going, oh, well, we want to read over your book before we decide what we want to do. So I would give it to them before I got there. If you got a book, you want to give it to them. That's when I give it to them. So guys, I appreciate you guys being part of day 3 of becoming an expired master. Hopefully you guys got a lot from it. Give me some feedback if you don't mind. I'd like to know what you thought. We've got one more week. Week 4 is next. Hey guys, if you guys have not subscribed to Red X, they have that special deal for you guys. Contact them because you need to get started right now. And Trenton, there'll be a copy of that net sheet in the files section of becoming an expired master. If it's not in there already, I'll upload it later today. But you guys have a fantastic day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Hey, thanks so much, Carol. You have a great day.